So, in this conversation in consciousness, we are diving into this whole topic. We are lovingly calling triggered AF, which I can't say the second word, but it means as fudge in grown-up language. And we want to talk about what a trigger actually is and how to use it to your benefit, because it could be the source of great frustration. And we can go down a very deep, dark, long rabbit hole where we don't rise on the other side stronger, wider lenses of perception, or with a better perspective in our consciousness. Consciousness just equals information, you guys. That's all it means. So when people are saying, I want to raise my consciousness, it essentially is saying, I want more information. I want access to a broader perspective. And when we get triggered, a lot of people don't recognize what it actually is. So Violet, you have a great little descriptor for what a trigger is. Do you want to share that?
To me, a trigger it's like a red flag. It's just pointing you in the direction of where you need to look. That's all it is. It's like a catalyst to look at something. That's all. It's like the alarm clock that goes off to wake you up in the morning.
Yeah.
So we can get mad at the alarm clock for waking us up, but it's not actually the problem. Right?
Yeah, well, there's that. So what people don't realize is that catalyst event, whether, the alarm clock or your friend or somebody in a group posts something that is against your constitution, or, we have these belief systems that get challenged. The trigger isn't the emotions. The trigger isn't the stories you build. The trigger isn't actually the relationship. This is really important to understand. The trigger was a specific catalytic event that allowed everything else to open up into your awareness that is now causing you to surf through all of these different dimensions of information that you maybe have a not so pleasant reaction to, or perhaps you start going, I don't know how to solve this problem. Maybe you have been in that state where you guys have gotten into the spins. When we say the spins, it's like where you're asking so many questions and you don't know where to look or what to do, but you're angry, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're feeling lost, whatever those things are. That isn't the trigger. The trigger was the catalytic event that poked you and brought those resonance fields up.
So triggers themselves are totally neutral.
And realize, the triggers are neutral. It wasn't the person. The person didn't cause you to have the emotion. Mm-mm. They just gave you the catalytic event for something that was already sitting in your field that you need to deal with. So we had a fantastic example of this come up today in the group.
It was so good.
Missing a chair. Yeah, it was so good.
Good.
So one of our members posted this big thing about how, well, when you guys respond to, I'm paraphrasing right now, so we'll go back to it, but it was talking about the truth testing. And when people answered questions, she's like, this is kind of feeling like it's a control drama. But the whole post in itself was a control drama. And when we look at things in this way, a lot of our membership got triggered, right? I saw the comments start to go and I'm like, where's my popcorn and chips? Like, I'm just going to hold space and let this unfold, because holy Toledo's.
Highly entertaining.
Yeah, it is. And not in a condescending way. It's like, oh man, this is going to hit some resonance fields, right?
What I loved about it though, is like, if you had brought something like that up in probably any other group, it wouldn't have gone down the way it did.
Oh God, no, you would have got lamb roasted.
It was people's responses were very thoughtful. Mm-hmm. I could tell everyone was really trying to check in with themselves and see where they were coming with before they brought their stuff to the table, for the most part. Like, even though some people were still triggered and there were some control dramas happening in the comments, it was not to the level that you would see like anywhere else.
And there's a reason for that, mm-hmm. Right? In our community, one of the things we train people to do, and it's funny that we have to train adults to do this, but it doesn't happen in our childhood. Like, our parents don't recognize these things. None of our educators in school usually recognize these things. We train everybody to check in here first before responding outwards. And so one of the things I notice when people do get triggered is we create something called a false target. And when we have some kind of emotional response lift up, when our Akashics are showing and it's just not cute, when we're in that space where something is just taking us off center and we are spinning like a mofo, sometimes the easiest target is not necessarily the person we should be dumping on. It's not even necessarily that person who's the problem. It can sometimes be just the person that's closest in our periphery or who we think is the issue. And so one of the things I am really cognizant of in my language, in my processing when I'm triggered, is I try really hard not to go forward and project any of my stuff onto other people. That's really hard, especially when we want to make sweeping generalizations, or we want to get in this space where we're like, I know I'm right, right? Where I know I'm right. And I try not to get into those spaces, especially when I'm still sorting through my stuff. And so, Violet, I want to talk a little bit about how we even deal with a trigger. Like once it comes up and these emotional resonance fields are hit, once your Akashics burst forth, once you have something in your field that you're like, oh God, right? And you just don't know what to do with it. How do you even move forward? Especially when your truth testing is busted and you're feeling not in sync with your intuition. And so far, historically speaking, you don't ask really great questions that get you to the next level of awareness. What do you even do?
Yeah, it's tough. I remember being triggered all the time. And just like the first thing that I want to say is the feelings that you're feeling are real.
Yeah, right.
And so, yeah, there's no reason to like gloss over that. Those are real feelings that you're feeling. Your body is having a response. It's having a moment. Something is coming up for you and it feels big when it happens. It feels really freaking big. And when we don't feel like we're equipped to deal with it, it adds a layer of kind of panic because it's like, now I'm feeling this thing and I don't know what to do about it. And 100% valid, you guys. So like, give yourselves a break. You haven't probably been taught how to deal with this stuff before. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's one of the things we're trying to change in this community is giving people the tools to deal with these things. And yes, it feels like the end of the world at the time because it's like your heart's racing and you're like breaking into a cold sweat and, these emotions are coming up and you don't know how to deal with them. So super valid. I just want to let you know, whenever you're feeling triggered, it's a valid response. The other thing I'm going to say is just because you're feeling an emotion doesn't necessarily mean that the thing that you're thinking about it is true. So the first thing we need to do is take a moment and check in. What am I feeling? Like just check into self, because the easiest thing to do is start to get pulled off in different directions by your thoughts and the feelings that you're feeling. So when I first started, do you remember, Caitlin? I used to tell you that I felt like emotions were a foreign language and I just didn't understand them. I was like, they make no sense.
I remember like you had the emotional range of a teaspoon. And trying to get you to sync up and realize that there were different elevations of what you were experiencing was a bit of a task. Like you just were not cross-referencing at that time. I can't even speak tonight. My tongue is lazy.
I know, mine too.
You were not cross-referencing at that time. And it was like your body and your brain were not synced up. And so when you were having a gut feeling, your head was bypassing it and being like, but this is the logic of the situation. And so that's irrelevant, right? Like there was this cognitive dissonance that
100%.
just was not.
And it did not happen overnight. It took me a lot of work, but I was determined to learn it. I was like, I'm going to learn this. It's going to happen. It's like learning a foreign language. It's not easy to do at first. It's like a whole new brain map and new neurological processes. Like for me, I was so disconnected from my body that I didn't even notice that things were happening in my body until it was like massive. It was the only time. So I did find it hard to truth test and I found it hard to deal with my emotions, but I had to just keep going. And I can't give you like a step-by-step process other than I just kept trying the tools the way that I could. And the thing that worked the best for me was when somebody would help me, usually Caitlin when we first started, but then also my classmates and then myself, more as I got comfortable with it. Okay, so scan my body. What am I noticing? Is my heart racing? That's usually what happens when I get triggered. It still happens to me now when I get triggered. My heart starts racing really fast. And I'm like, whoa, that's interesting. So just noticing and making a note of, okay, so my heart's racing, going down. Okay, I'm feeling some like, it feels like tumultuousness, like spinning in my guts. Things are like rolling around. Okay, so that's happening. Okay, my foot is like tapping and shaking and I can't like sit still. So these are the sensations I'm feeling in my body. Okay, grab my emotion wheel. What is this? Find the first one. Usually there's a couple, anywhere from like 2 to 3 to 4 different emotions kind of rolling in there. And it can be something like anger, frustration, fear. Like you can have a whole bunch of different things going on. So naming the sensations in the body, naming the emotions that are coming up. Okay, what can I do to release this? Truth, is this even mine? Okay, partially, but not all of it. Now it's starting to calm down a little bit. Okay, so now I can kind of breathe a little bit better. Okay, so some of it was, some of it's not. So the stuff that's here, I'm feeling it in my chest, I'm feeling it in my stomach. So these are the locations where it's kind of sitting in my body. These are the emotions that they are. And I'm going to start, okay, consciously pulling them out, pulling them out, pulling them out until they lessen. And once I can actually think straight, that's when I start to track and ask questions.
Yeah, so that's so important, you guys. And I'll tell you a little bit about my tells in my body because they're very different to Violet's. When you are in that spin state, really the only questions we want to be asking in that moment is this even mine? Because as soon as you connect that dot, like once you've done what Violet has said and you've looked and you're like, okay, I'm having these emotions, here's my tells, here's what's going on in my system, is this even mine? Does this belong to me? The body will start to calm down, or it will elevate it and start having you connect to elements of a story. This takes a little bit of practice, but your body is always leading the way. It doesn't lie. So the tells in my system are different. So where Violet gets the heart palpitations and it like starts going faster, I almost stop breathing. My breathing gets so shallow that I almost do this like to reset after. And I realize that I've gotten to this point where I've just been holding really tight. I'm like hoarding all of the information.
So you like clench kind of?
I clench. Yeah. And my fingers, I'll start doing this a lot. Like I will get fisty. I can't punch worth a damn. I have no upper body strength. I will get fisty. I stop breathing. And the other thing that happens to me, really strange, but my ovaries will get painful. So those are my tells when I'm triggered, right? And something hits my field or something is coming in that I currently don't feel like I have control over it or I have the answers for it. My body has a very specific tell. Your guys' body will have that too. You just need to start paying attention to it, maybe do a little bit of journaling and keep track of how it responds. Once I'm in that space, the first question I ask is always, is this even mine? And what am I looking at, reading, or recalling in my memory right in this moment that brought it on? So this actually happened to me yesterday. I was listening to a YouTube video that somebody had sent me about like just some of the COVID stuff that's going on and the justice centers and cases getting thrown out. And they were like, look at this, rah, rah, getting going. And my whole body went, right? So my whole system started to clench up. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. Whoa, I see you. So actually, that's the very first thing I do. It's like I go into observer role and I'm like, Caitlin, I see you. It's like I'm talking from my soul down to this system. I see you. Hey, what's up? What's going on here? What are we looking at? What were we listening to? What's in our field, right? I start asking questions like this. And is this even mine? And when I was watching that video yesterday, I didn't realize that when I was watching it, I was really tired. Even though I wasn't off my axis, I was not on my A game. Like I was not paying attention to my periphery. And through that video and the grid that's been built around it, I had allowed some entities into my field and into my house that really shouldn't have been there. And that were starting to kind of feel like they were draining life force energy from me. And so my body gave me that tell. And then I just had to go through my work. Now, back when I very first started this, like many of you guys who are brand new to HRA, I did not have the tools. The things I had were a pendulum, my mediumship, and some Reiki. That was it. You guys, when I first started, I was not like this. I went and got my crystals and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not happy. And I would like lie down with them all down like the chakra points, and I'd do all these funny rituals. I'd like burn shit in my cauldron, and I'm like, I banish the demonics from my space. Like that was my reaction to it. But how it helped me is that I had an outlet, a discharge for the emotions and the frustrations I was feeling. What it didn't do was take me to the point of origin of why I even allowed myself to feel like that in the first place. So how do we move forward with this? How the frick dang do we take a trigger and truth test and start unwinding the emotions, start unwinding the stories, decide whether we're going to, go into the Akashic records or whether we have to clear something with mediumship, or, how do we do that? Through really good question asking. Now, a lot of you guys have been trained throughout your life to not ask good questions. You were told to ask questions that led you to the answer that everybody else wanted you to have.
We don't do that here.
We don't do that here. we don't do that here.
No.
Okay. And it's an art form. I wasn't good at it when I first started either. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was not. My perception and lenses of possibility were like, oh, it's big. Right.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was terrible at asking questions. I couldn't think of anything when I first started either. And now I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
To practice.
Mm-hmm. So this is where we can lean on the collective a little bit. All right. But you have to be very clear when you're posting about your situations that you're looking for better questions to ask, or a new perspective that might help you look at this in a different way. Or perhaps you're asking for, what tool is the best one in this situation? Because I tried this and I don't feel the shift I needed. We need to get really clear about that. But this is where you might share something and somebody goes, I wonder if, and I love questions that start with, I wonder if. I love questions that start with, what if? I do this all the time in sessions. All of my people I had sessions with today, I go into a wonder state the entire time I'm healing. I'm like, I wonder if it's possible that, and what if, because of this is why it links together. And then I'll wait and I'll see if the resonance field is there. And if it is, and then I'll be like, and then I wonder if that's why your body is doing it like this. Nope, that doesn't feel right. Okay, 0 point, start again. Okay, so this was right. Okay, so if that isn't linked to the body yet, but I can feel this thing over here, is this actually an emotion? No, it feels like a cord. Is this a cord? Yeah, it's a cord. Okay, who is this out to? Oh, I keep getting like this male feeling, or a spouse, or I had an altercation with my boss, or whatever it is. So I go into those I wonders, what ifs, and they keep falling out of my mouth. So I'm going to give you guys a challenge this week as you're posting, as you're answering questions in the group, to respond with as many I wonders and what ifs as possible.
Here's the thing with that. It works best if you are actually curious.
Yeah, right?
If you're posting these questions because you're trying to get the person to see a specific answer you want them to see, or you think they need, ain't gonna work. You have to genuinely be curious, genuinely be in that space of wonder. Like Caitlin said, when she's asking these what if questions, she's not doing it from a condescending standpoint. She legit doesn't know the answer. She's just asking. So we need to get ourselves to those spaces before we then turn those questions over to other people, because they're not going to be able to pick up on the thread if we also haven't picked up on it yet.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. All of that. So I'd really love for you guys to just play in that I wonder and what if state. And if you're genuinely not curious about what that person has posted, next.
Don't respond.
Yeah, don't
Not for
respond,
you.
because if you don't have a perspective that needs to get shared, if you don't have something that's going to contribute, if you feel like, this isn't the place where you have the expertise at this time or the codes or whatever, somebody else is going to have that post where you need to show,
Yeah.
right?
We are not required to respond to everybody's everything.
No, and I don't. There are some where I'm like, nope, this isn't mine. Nope, this person doesn't require me at this time. Nope, the collective needs to come in on this one, right? I'm
Yeah.
very aware of where I place my energy.
Creating noise too in other people's fields isn't necessarily helpful. So
No,
yeah.
no, 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 no,
So
no. What do you
sometimes we
mean by
just
that
don't
though,
have.
Violet? What, hold on.
Okay, go back.
What do you mean by that? Creating noise in other people's fields?
Okay, so somebody asks a question and we're trying to be helpful, but we literally have no, like, we don't know. We don't know the answer. We have no thread to follow. We've got no perspective. We drop a whole bunch of random, have you tried this and this and this? But it might not be the thing that the person needs. And you actually didn't feel any calling to like contribute except from your own space of, I need to help somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what we end up doing is when a whole bunch of people, and that could be from anything, like it could be from, that was just one example. What it kind of does is it just adds a lot of noise to the group. There's like, if somebody puts a post up and they're asking a legitimate question and they're wanting help, sometimes having a whole conversation is super helpful. And other times it's not. It can sometimes feel overwhelming, right? Because the person's trying to sort through their stuff and there's like 10 people saying a bunch of things that aren't even relevant to the person because they're coming at it from a point of like, I feel the need to help for some reason. So I don't know where that's coming from for you. I've had moments of that myself. And for me, whenever I felt the need to respond, and I still do this sometimes, on your guys' posts, I'll feel the need to respond. And then I have to check in with my motivations. Why do I feel the need to respond?
Okay,
Where's
so
that coming from?
that's important, because sometimes we feel the need to respond because we're actually going and empathizing with somebody. And that actually creates more noise too.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are feeling what other people are feeling, right? Being an empath, vibrationally matching their experience, we're going down and we're, really in the depths of what they're walking through.
Mm-hmm.
You are no longer the observer.
And you can't help them anymore.
And if you start bringing all of your stuff and your stories in there, you could add more to their Akashic haze to sort through. And you could be fractalizing some of their Akashic memories that were clear, right? And now all of it, not clear as in gone, but like clear as we can see them.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because they're layering context and vibe matching with you, we start adding these different fractals and it's more for them to sort. So if you are in the space of empathizing, then what we need to look at is, oh my gosh, I still have a trigger here too. Okay, this is something I know that I have to go forward and work on clearing out of my field.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
And you can always thank the person. Oh, thanks for bringing this up. This just brought up a trigger for me to track. Sweet.
Yeah.
Or just leave it. I don't know, right? Like,
go do your own work, right?
this is such a huge conversation. There's like so many different things we can talk about around this topic about, interacting with other people and being triggered and all of this. Like, I mean, everybody's points in the thread from that one conversation that we are referencing, they were all valid points. There was a lot of control dramas, even though people were trying not to. The thing that I want to say about that is if you're responding to somebody and in that moment, you're still triggered, even if you feel like you're trying to rise above it, you're still in that, you're still having an emotional reaction to it. If you feel the need to defend a point of view
or align and agree with it,
you are still in a triggered state and you need to address that first before you respond. Ideally, if you don't, we're all adults, we'll figure it out. But Just try it. Just
Yeah,
try
you'd
it.
be amazed at how quickly it cleans up your communication with all humans. You know, a lot of the issues that so many people who come to see me, especially when they've got things going on with their children, with their spouses, with their workplaces, they are not taking that radical responsibility, that accountability for the things I say, the things I think, the way I project my feelings, and the way other people come in and match what I'm feeling because I'm not being responsible with my energy. And so it's a learned behavior, you guys. It takes time to develop. There are things that are going to be faster for some of us than others. But we do need to start being aware of these things, especially as we go into some of the things that are about to start happening over the course of this year. We're going to get triggered again. I mean, last year we had the BLM, we had the vaccines start to roll out, we had like all the COVID protocols, we had, what else did we have? The government switchovers, the US elections, the shit going on with China, the shit going on with Russia. I mean, we had so much. Now this year we're starting into the bombings again with the US government going over into the Middle East and starting to ramp that up again. We're going to have a whole new level of news stories coming in. And we can use this to make ourselves stronger and more resilient and less corruptible, or we can very much use this to our own demise, right? And it's up to us to learn that space of, okay, my body's reacting to this and following it. And Sam and Shannon talked about this in the Decodes course this week, right? You guys started following it with the truth testing and then the pendulums and then starting to take it further to understand what you needed to unwind. It's our responsibility to start following through on those elements that we are really feeling and having these experiences that are very real for us in that moment and to take accountability for them, right? That's our job. And in order for us to become really good healers, in order for us to become those pillars, the anchors that a lot of people are going to be looking to us for in the coming years, we have to clean up our stuff. And that comes with taking accountability, becoming sovereign, becoming incorruptible, getting to that space where you can handle your triggers like a boss, because you're still going to get triggered because you're human and we have emotions and they have these funny resonance fields that build. Like, you're still going to have that. It's never going away, right? And it's really just getting to that place where you understand self from non-self, and it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
Right? It's simply not going to.
Totally.
Oh man, this is a huge subject.
It is.
Huge subject. I think it would be handy. I want to share a little bit about myself 5 years ago, because I think it's going to be highly relatable. I was what you would say an emotional basket case. And I couldn't tell what was mine versus anybody else's. And I was constantly taking those emotions and projecting it out onto the situations that were most immediate around me. And then also creating stories, like false reality stories about what was causing it. So for example, I'm overwhelmed because I'm in a large group of people. I'm overwhelmed because I'm empathic and I'm picking up on all these stories. I'm overwhelmed because there's too much information. Nobody's giving me the right answer. Or one of my other triggers that used to be really present was, I'm just so freaking angry and frustrated because nobody's giving me the entire story. Right? Nobody's giving me the entire story. They're giving me a breadcrumb, but they won't give me the final answer. And it used to royally pee me off. Like, that was the worst thing you could do to me, was drop a breadcrumb with this little fun hint. I do it to you guys all the time, with this little fun hint of some stuff, and then be like, okay, happy journeying, way to go, right? And I would spin out from these things, and I would feel like I wasn't good enough. I didn't know what I was doing, that they were trying to control my outcomes, that these teachers really didn't want to support me. I used to feel like it didn't matter what I did, I was always going to have to be reliant on my husband to ground me, right? And to keep me present. And if he wasn't around, no, I'm not looking at that. There's a couple of beings in my room that want to be addressed after we're done, and they're very obnoxious. They're like, anyways, so I was constantly externally looking for that validation. And I was looking for somebody else to bring me down, not like cut me down, but to ground me, to keep me present. I was using other people and environments to stabilize my system. And so I really never actually got to that point of learning to stabilize myself. And then when that all got taken away and I had to start from ground zero, I was left feeling like I was a brand new being, because everything I had built up to that point was dependent on my environment and the relationships around me. And that triggered me because I always thought I was this like young girl. I had my business going. I was managing a huge farm. I had this huge lesson program I had developed. And it was like, I thought I had it all together, by everybody else's standards, I was doing fine, but internally I wasn't, because I hadn't learned to self-regulate. And it took a lot of practice and skill to learn that I had to come above that frequency or go below that frequency to figure out what was actually going on. So if I was in an emotional spin, I had to come up and be the observer. Or if I was in an emotional spin, I had to unplug and I had to just really connect with the environment around me. Like, this is a rock. This is what I see. This is what I feel. This is what I can hear. Like, turn on my very real senses, right? And it took time. It really took time. So you guys, don't put asinine expectations on yourself. Just try your best in every single moment. You're going to slip up. You're going to screw it up. You're going to get yourself into internet wars. You're going to get yourself into these conversations with your families. You're going to get into energy pulls with other people. But the more and more you practice and the more and more you start leaning in to that radical accountability for self, emotions, your words, your energy field, the easier and easier it's going to get. It very rarely happens to me now. I'm like stable AF, which I never used to say. Yeah.
Jade has a really interesting statement that I think we should address. So she says, it feels really icky that we aren't supposed to empathize, that we can't freely look for help or express when we are in emotional situations and just want someone to hold space. I don't know about others, but it makes me feel even more afraid to post.
Okay, so let's talk about empathy. Empathy means to match the frequency of what another person is experiencing. So Jade, if you came to me and you were experiencing this big emotional upheaval, or if you're in a depression and my body chooses to vibrationally sync up and match with you, I'm no longer your helper. So I can't see you. I can't go above. I can't go below. I've synced up with you. Empathy is
the way that I see it is like, just to take it out of the emotional standpoint.
Sure. Yeah.
When a person is drowning, most of you guys have heard this. Somebody's drowning. The thing you don't want to do is jump in to save them, because they'll just take you down with them. Right? Now there's two people drowning. Now what? So what we need to do is get leverage, like get down low on our stomach and throw something to them so we can help pull them back onto land to be grounded. And that's what we're trying to do. So when we're empathizing, we're jumping in to try to save them. And instead we're being pulled down and drowning with them. Empathy itself can be a super effective tool when used appropriately. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But here's the problem. If we look at most people who identify as empaths, they are like hot mess express because they can't handle their emotional field. They are at the beckoning call of everything around them, their environment, the people, the places they go, because they haven't learned to internally regulate and sort and understand what is ours from not ours. And in Jade, if you go and post something because you have emotions going on, it's not your problem if so-and-so comes in and starts to co-regulate with you. That's not your responsibility. Mm-hmm. That's on them to recognize that they are coming in and vibe matching with your field and no longer contributing. So I would look at a couple of things with your post. Number one, I'm going to call this out right here. You heard what you wanted to hear. It validated your experience of not being seen and sharing the things you actually want to share. So when we come in and we say these kinds of things, and this, okay, so now I'm tracking, I'm in behind the field here of what you said. When you said something like this and you go, we can't freely look for help or express emotional situations, what you're doing is solidifying a belief that nobody can help you, nobody can see you, nobody can hear you. Okay.
So that's a great place to run a clearing statement.
Exactly. And then to start going and looking at, where have I done this before? What other situations, people, family events have caused this trigger before? Is there a pattern or a cycle to this? Okay, this is partially ancestral, or nope, this is a part of my Akashic records. I keep repeating this. This is something I need to clear or integrate or master, whatever that is, right? You guys, we have to be so careful to, people do this all the time when we're teaching, when you listen to anybody, we hear what we want to hear to validate the experience in the place where we're currently standing, to keep some of our realities in place. So we can use triggers to our growth or triggers to our demise.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us how we handle it, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jade saying, thanks, you're right, makes me want to throw up, but I appreciate it. So Jade, that throwing up sensation, this is where I would do the emotional release that I talked about at the beginning. So you can feel it, I'm assuming somewhere in your guts or in your stomach, maybe even coming up your throat. So, okay. So body, thank you for showing me this.
Mm-hmm.
What emotion is this? Grab your wheel or just allow whatever word comes up. Okay, I see you. Thank you. Let's just pull this out, or do that. Like what I like to do is pretend my body is like a pot of boiling water, like Caitlin has told in the emotional release lesson. That works really well for me usually. And then I see it almost like releasing out the top of my head, like steam, like
You steam it off, and I like volcano. I'm like,
yeah, because you're like a destructo, and I'm just like a tea kettle going.
tea kettle. Oh,
Yeah.
we can sing the little teapot song. No, I'm like a volcano. I'm like, when that stuff's ready to go, bam, man.
Yeah. So just release that. And then as it starts to calm down, then you can start tracking, okay, where's this coming from? Like Caitlin said, okay, where else have I done this before? Is this a pattern for me? Is it even mine?
Yeah. So many tools you guys can use.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know this was a really big subject. I know that there's obviously going to be some things that hit resonance fields in it tonight. So I would love for you guys to go back and to really check into what came up for you, see how your reactions are going, and then do your own processing. See how far you can take yourself. Okay, and then use the tools that we've given you guys to come back and see if the collective can take you farther, if it's relevant.